Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Corbett, and of course, here is Mr. Matt Germain. How you doing, buddy?
I'm not living the dream, but I'm living a dream, I guess.
A dream. Oh man, I don't know. Am I? We talked about this last week. I mean, things are looking good. I mean, they're still okay, but I'm going back to where I was saying a couple of weeks ago. You start out thinking World Series, then you're saying I'm definitely going to win the division. Then you're saying, okay, we're gonna get a wild card. Okay, looks like maybe we'll have a 500 average series this year. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see another Longoria with the 162 game to crack into the wild card. I mean, any thoughts there?
Um, I think, it feels like the Rays have been running, like if you've ever ran a half marathon or a longer race than you probably should have, and you get that stitch in your side, like somewhere around halfway to 2/3 in, it feels like the Rays have got that stitch in their side and they just can't shake it. And they keep trying to stretch it out as they're running. They keep trying to hydrate and try all kinds of tricks, but nothing's happening. And they keep hitting bumps in the road. Um, I, I honestly don't know what kind of year they thought they were going to have, to be honest, like through it all. I think the probably the biggest disappointment they have, I think, would be the Shane McClanahan not actually coming through at any point in time in the season, because they probably had anticipated that at some point he would arrive and that they would take a leap forward, as an example. But the last week has just been watching them against the Guardians. They started off with a bang and then just fizzled off.
Wow.
And at that point, I was like, this it just doesn't look like the offense is clicking enough to get to that point. And it kind of led to a post that I put today, which is just if there's anything the Rays can do this offseason, I want them to just take a really thorough look at how they develop hitters all the way through the minors, because there's a vulnerability with the hitters that they develop, which just doesn't seem to allow them to become above average in the majors. I think you can count on Brandon Lau. You could say he's an above average hitter, but the other ones that are on the team doing well, like Yandy Díaz, wasn't developed by the Rays. He came to the Rays as a finished product, right? So the rest of them are just underwhelming overall. Junior Caminero might be the only one that you could point to, and I would say it's almost a God-given talent at this point, based on how he's performing. Oddly enough, both him and Yandy Díaz came to them from the Cleveland Guardians. So, you got to tip your hat to them and thank them for sending both of them over to the Rays. But um, I do still point to the fact that Junior Caminero wouldn't be where he is today if he hadn't done the ABL bit or the Winter League bit. So I'm going to keep harping on that and hoping that some of the guys that struggled this year are going to get a chance to play some winter ball and catch up.
I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen because, as far as regarding the hitting that you're talking about, because I don't know, does that need to be addressed at a minor league level? Does that need to be addressed here at the very top? You used the word completely, and I thought, what all are you saying with that? Because I don't want to take anything away from Chad Mottola, but we're expecting a lot from him to be, as far as
To be
delivering the goods.
Chad Mottola is not setting the stage for how those players are developed in A ball, in A plus, in double A, in triple A, right? That's something that's internal. And I'm sure the Rays will sit down and have a thorough look at everything. But I think sometimes an organization needs to recognize their weakest points. So when I know the Rays extremely well and how they've developed people over the last 10 years. And their two weakest spots are developing hitters that can hit in the majors and developing catchers. Those are their two weakest spots.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Rays this offseason, I address those. I take a thorough look at what we've done and I say, what is wrong with this? What are teams that are doing much, much, much better, like the elites, right? So you could point to the Brewers and how they develop catchers. You could point to other teams and how they develop hitters. Whatever it is, and the Rays are knowledgeable enough to figure that out. They have the data, right? And they know how to look at it. So just look at it and say, what changes do we need to take us from here to there? and whether that's personnel changes that they need to do through the minors in terms of who's coaching who, and in terms of what they're preaching, in terms of the approach at the plate, everything. Just break it all down, tear it down, rebuild it the same way they would do with a pitcher coming in from another team, right? Like take that same approach that they seem to do so well at and apply it to hitting and catching.
Well, I like that. I mean, it really stings though when I think about our history with catchers, about how many of our better catchers were none of them were homegrown. I mean, well, I shouldn't say number. I think of Wilson Ramos. He wasn't homegrown. I think of Little D. Darno. Great catcher. And so those guys, and there's many others besides them, they were definitely not homegrown. And right now, are either one of the F guys, Feduccia or Fortis, or either one of them? Neither one of them actually came through the Rays system either, did they?
No, but I would say they're showing potential. Like they're showing potential to stick around at least 1 or 2 years if the Rays believe in them enough. Like they're Fiducia's framing isn't going to be elite at any point, but I think his all around game it kind of is intriguing in some ways. Fortes is the guy that I think may have been overlooked before he got to the Rays, and if his
Yeah.
bat ever comes around, his framing and his approach behind the plate and how he calls games is so above average that it would actually make him a pretty intriguing guy to keep around. So I think between the two, let's say the Rays were to give Dom Keegan a shot at the show next year, and he's their top catching prospect at the upper levels. Let's say that they want to give him a shot, then I could see Fortes being the guy that sticks around. But also, if the Rays do end up letting Yandy Díaz go, Feduccia can play first base as well, and
Yeah.
he's got a decent enough bat to kind of, you know, chip in with whoever ends up being at first the most. Like, so right now, I know we're a little bit down on the Rays and where they're going, right? But think about what this last month would have been with Jonathan Aranda aboard. How big a loss was he in that momentum? And where would they have taken this? You replace Bob Seymour with Jonathan Aranda, and you're taking a pretty significant leap forward. So I give the Rays a lot of slack in terms of the situation that they were handed. I give them a lot of praise for betting on Carson Williams, who hit a huge home run the other day, and he's kind of finding his groove a little bit as a major league player. Like they've done a lot of things right, and like we've said at the trade deadline, the guys they brought in weren't just brought in for 1 year. The majority of them were for a couple of years, and up to three for the most part. So all their investments are basically going to help them set the stage. And money, like I know, like a lot of people overlook that aspect of things, but getting rid of Ha-Sung Kim's contract
Oh yeah.
and they basically have no commitments after next year, like zero. So they have a clean slate and new ownership coming in to do whatever they want. And that's a huge opportunity. So that's why today I posted the group of players that they have, and I think there's 12 of them on the 40-man roster that are under 27 years old. And so, when you've got 12 guys that are MLB tested, they have some seasoning. Some of them are going to be stars, some of them are not going to be around very long. But you can tell there's a talent core there that's young enough and cheap enough to support if the Rays were to put in a huge investment and draw somebody in some way, somehow, whether it's in trade or a free agent, then that's something that can become really interesting to watch. Did you see about the Kyle Tucker injury?
No, what happened there?
So he was put on IL, and the fear is that it's going to really hurt his free agency for a lot of reasons. First of all, he hadn't really had the mammoth season that everybody expected he would have as a Cub, even though he's having a solid season. It's not by any means a down season. It's just not as great as it had been in 2024. Um, and from what I gather, anyways, that when you talk about shoulders and those kinds of injuries, they tend to get a lot of people squeamish. So there's suspicion that it could be a shoulder injury that's bothering him most. There's the strained calf, I think, is what he ended up going to IL for. But it could go either way. You know how some teams don't like to talk about injuries and
Oh yeah.
openly, etc. So
HIPAA, right? HIPAA.
yeah,
I mean, it's kind of a strange thing about sports where if you stand in a line at a pharmacy, you're supposed to be 6 feet back and not hear the medication that's been given. But however, if you're in sports, your medical history is out there for the world. Yes. But no, I'm sorry to hear that about Kyle Tucker. Whatever that the injury or difficulty he might be experiencing, because I was looking forward to seeing right now we are in the midst of what 6 games in Chicago,
mhm.
a city that I don't think has been occupied yet, but we're up there, and I hope everybody's got their papers. But it's the Windy City, is that right? Yeah, it's second city. They all blend together for me after a while. But the funny thing is that we're on the south side with the White Sox, and the White Sox are getting to see some old friends. We're bringing them back. We got Adrian Hauser and Tristan Gray, and both of those guys, they made a difference in our first game back last night in Chicago.
They did. Yeah. Tristan Gray has been looking a lot more comfortable than he did the first time he came up with the Rays. And playing time is the mother of all development, right? And so uh hopefully it's a sign of things to come, and hopefully he can keep chipping in and making good on his talents. He's always had the power. And I think where you're seeing a little bit with Tristan is he's comfortable on the field. He's comfortable defensively and he's steady. So we talked about Miles Mastrobuoni with the Mariners when we went up the Northwest. He was an ex-Rays player that was a utility type that could move around, play some, all over the infield, play some outfield as well. Tristan Gray is that kind of player as well, but he's got the power that makes him even more intriguing than Mastrobuoni, because when you're talking about guys off the bench that can have that key hit and can drive things forward late in the game, that's what Tristan Gray can provide off the bench. So I'm hoping, in some way, shape, or form, whether it's with the Rays or with somebody else eventually, that he's finding himself a role in MLB. Because like Mike Brasso will tell you, it's not easy to keep those roles going.
Ouch! I was just yeah. It is difficult. I I put an ouch in there because I looked over at the screen. Here we are. It is Wednesday night. And I know that we were at least leading off here, but now see that they've got 3 runs up on us, 3-1 at the moment. But
Yeah.
going back to last night, Tuesday, the first game, I found it kind of interesting when I'm looking at a couple of things. One, you're seeing Jake Mangum. All in all, he is looking good. He continues to look good. He had difficulty with that one last night. They went over the wall when he was out in the outfield trying to catch that, and that wasn't anything there. The other thing that you saw in the outfield was Josh Lowe, and he was running out there, catches the ball, wasn't even snow coned, but then he runs up against the wall, which is like a chain link fence, and with the impact of that, knocking the ball out of his glove. But if you had any concern about Josh delivering for the team, he made up for that by driving in a run with a home run himself. So 2 RBIs and a home run for Josh Lowe. It was a home run night. So there was him. Who was it? There was Tristan Gray. There was Richie Palacio. So we had 3 home runs in that win last night. So I'm looking now for tonight that we should have at least another 3 home runs. That's the anticipation right now, Matt. So I'm hoping to see what we got up here right now. They have. I wasn't watching enough to see what actually happened, but I know they got that one guy Montgomery who's just amazing. For a team that's suffering as much as the White Sox are. Let's see, where are they? At this point, they're 55-90. Uh, they held the bottom of the bucket last year, but the Rockies are helping them out. So
So how easy is it to double up Chandler Simpson when he's at the plate? Like, so that's what happened in the first inning, or in the second. It was in the second inning.
yeah,
They had the Rays had the bases loaded, and they got Chandler Simpson to induce into a double play. And
right.
Carson and Montgomery was one of the guys that threw him out. And it takes quite a bit of good turnout to actually get Chandler before he steps on that first base bag when he's putting the ball in play. So. Yeah, he's been a blessing for the White Sox who need a a new leader, a new face of the franchise, and I would say Kyle Teal is the other guy with the White Sox that really, shows well, gives them some promise and something to lean on. But their pitching's really been what's I think most of their fans would point to as being surprisingly good since they've turned the corner in terms of being the worst team in baseball to now being almost the worst team in baseball, right? Um, but yeah, so I think Rays fans can allude to the fact that sometimes you just need to focus on the positives and ignore the noise behind the scenes, especially as you're finishing the season. The White Sox are just, do you know what their stadium status is? Like what's going on with ownership? Have they selected a new site? Have they, you're talking about stadiums and they're also in a plight right now where I don't remember when their contract ends or when they need to find a new home, but they're one of those intriguing teams in terms of, if certain cities show really well for expansion
Yeah.
and they don't land a team, the White Sox might come knocking.
Wow. That you're really thinking out of the box there, man, because I didn't see that as a possibility. But with the challenges they've had and their owner has not been exactly friendly about what he wants to see the future of that team. He been that's the guy that also pissed off Michael Jordan with the Bulls. So since he owns them as well. So who knows? It's been a strange team for the last 5 or 6 years anyway.
But honestly, if you're an owner, right, of a 1/30th stake, right? So you own one of 30 teams. Why would you want to share a city with somebody else? I don't
Montreal.
understand. I don't know why you would want to do that. So if I'm him, for sure. Like let's say Montreal and Utah get a team, like Salt Lake City and Montreal, then I'm interested in Nashville, or I'm interested in Portland, or I'm
Hmm.
interested in, because then I have a city of my own to kind of, I I don't know how he improves his play in Chicago to become anything above or near the Cubs ever. So you're always, 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 always going to play second fiddle to the Cubs, regardless of whether you win 3 championships in the next 5 years. The Cubs will always outshine you. It doesn't matter. It's I don't know. I know there's some people love that about the White Sox. They kind of feed on it, and for the fans of the White Sox, that's what they love is the fact that they are the dark side. They are the underdogs, the forgotten ones in Chicago, whatever you want to call it, right? And they kind of feed off that whatever. But to me, that just sounds a lot like the Oakland A's, and it's not really a team you want to model yourself after if you're kind of trying to support a franchise. And when your owner's having this hard a time getting the right deal for a stadium, it points to a weakness in terms of political influence as well. And we've seen what that did to Stu Sternberg. So,
Not going too much into Stu, but I've been trying to keep up some with the new ownership. And from what I'm seeing, Stu's not going to be completely out of the picture. It looks like he's going to have a piece of the action. And all the talk for the Orlando Dreamers, I believe that guy is going to be involved and have a piece of the action. So that whole idea of the Orlando Dreamers, I think, is going to go away and it's going to be in corporation. So you see, you've got your Jacksonville developer. You've got and I don't know if he's also involved with the Jumbo Shrimp, Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, but there's Bassett with them, Zalupski with the real estate, and I do not remember the name of the gentleman in Orlando, and then of course Stu. So that's four, and then there's going to be minority share owners with the Rays as well. So I'm getting a gist as far as what the ownership of that team may be looking like is that Stu will probably be in there for a while with this group, and whether or not he stays for a long period of time or not, I don't know. But I imagine most likely he'll be there for another 3 years or so in some capacity, but he will not be the face of the Rays.
I think the only reason I can think of that he stays as part of it is the Trop lease.
Hmm.
I think they need him to be the one who continues to guide them through that lease process and get rid of it entirely. And also the Wander Franco issue.
Oh,
Like there's some lingering administrative issues is the best way to put it that the team has to go through. And I think that's where his expertise is also going to be valued. And if the Rays need to lean on somebody who has insight on those topics, then he is the person to kind of back them up and to really, make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And I don't know that they would be able to keep that around if he just handed the team over to a new ownership group. Then they'd always be going back to him. And at that point, what is it, like an advisory capacity? Like, how do you, he's not going to answer the phone every time they call, but if he's a minority owner, well, yeah.
yeah. You bring up Franco, and I don't know if you all saw or not, but he has been admitted to a clinic, and some question as to some debilitation he may be experiencing mentally right now. But I hope that they're able to help him out with that. I'm not sure how this would play out, and that with the contract that he has with the Rays, if you wind up finding somebody who's not necessarily mentally capable to do the job anymore. I mean, we're all about making sure people have good mental health, and I want to make sure he does. I'm just trying to think of, part of me is just the rotten part that's always saying, what kind of deal can be worked out here? Is this going to be some way where somebody's trying to manipulate it and get something done to make sure that he has some money? I don't know. That's just the negative Nelly in me on that one.
But how would he get to the U.S.? Like, there's no way for him to get a work visa ever.
No.
So that's the stopping factor, like especially where he's a Latin American player coming into the U.S. in this day and age.
Yeah.
I don't want to, put things too much into the spotlight, but there's a huge wave of
Well, we're deporting, illegal immigrants, and those, especially with those who have a criminal record. And well, whether it's illegal or not, the criminal record part would keep the gentleman right out of here. So I don't think it's really a deal. I would just like to see that resolved for everybody's benefit.
Yeah, I think the best way for it to be resolved, quite honestly, is for him to sign a contract with a Caribbean team and just stay where he is and play baseball, if he wants, or if they're willing to have him on those teams as well. There's no guarantee that's the fact, and just find a way, or he he can find another way to make a living.
There you go.
Best way to put it.
Well, it's interesting too, going back to your comments about hitting, because I keep thinking, man, what could be done? And my mind goes back to that main baseball reference I continue to look at, and it is the movie Major League. And I'm thinking of the one player who's got his little character that he gives rum to and gives a cigar to, and to take away the fear of the bat of the ball, so it can hit the curveball. But
I cannot hit curveball. Straight ball, I hit it very much. Curveball, bats are afraid. I asked Joe Boo to come. Take fear from bats. I offered him cigar and rum. He will come.
so it's going to take that kind of magic. And here's something I just saw that happened. Mariners they haven't had a good streak lately. They were doing so poorly on the road. I think I read that they had not won a road series since the All-Star break. Yeah, if that's even half true, it's amazing. But one fan who just fed up with it said, I've got to find a way to help my team. So where did he turn to? Etsy. Yeah, everybody goes to Etsy when they're looking for something special. What did he found a witch who could put a spell upon the team to make things go better. Let's see here. Oh, how's this going? I'm going to read some of the story.
I love it.
Yeah. This is from sports.com mynorthwest.com. It says on Friday afternoon, just before the Mariners lost their fourth straight and for the sixth time in 7 games, a user under the handle of looks like not Bob Ross posted that they had an Etsy witch to cast a spell to end the Mariners' woes. On Saturday morning, they posted an update with a screenshot of correspondence with Spell by Luna on Etsy, confirming the purchase of a $19.99 spell with a $4 shop discount to help the Mariners get their act together and start winning baseball games again, and hopefully make their way to the World Series. Well, Spell by Luna's response reads in part, I completed my spell with my best materials for you. It was a ritual process full of beautiful energies. Dear, everything is fine now. All you need to do is stay positive and accept the manifestation of the spell. Well, I think they won that night. I'm not sure. But, the funny thing was I keep thinking back to Joe Madden because he actually brought in a medicine man. The guy was actually a tribal leader for the Seminoles here. And let's see, what was his name? Jeez. Oh, Bobby Henry. Bobby Henry. Joe Madden, I love him. He was looking to find energy and electricity wherever he could find it. So he brought in this medicine man. And the thing of it was, if they were looking for a rain delay, it wasn't going to happen because they were still in the trop at that point. But thinking outside the box, Matt. I mean, this is some creative thinking. 1999, that's what it takes to break a losing streak. It's $19.99.
There's a thing with sports. It's a little bit kooky sometimes, right?
Okay.
And I think even as a fan, sometimes if your team is doing really well, whatever it is that you're doing, the spot you're sitting on the couch, how you're situated in the room, what shirt you were wearing, what hat you were wearing, all these things become important, right? Especially when you're going through a playoff series or a winning streak. All of a sudden, everything needs to be the same. Wasn't it Terry Francona has to have spaghetti before every game or something like that? Like there are certain things that athletes will do because they firmly believe that they're going to impact the game in some way. So I applaud that fan for going on Etsy and doing what he needed to do to put his mind at ease and help his team out, right? I encourage all Rays fans to do the same. And find some way, shape, or form to, throw out some good karma towards your team, because I think that's really what it ultimately comes down to, right? Is all the good karma you're throwing out there, and you're hoping collectively that it has an impact on the outcomes. Obviously, it won't. But it's a nice thing to kind of put your mind at ease and say, you know what, at least I did my part. I can hang my hat on that. And next time, if it didn't work, I'll try something different. And when it does work, that'll be my ritual that I do every single time I need it.
Well, we've got to find that, buddy. We really do. Because, I mean, let's face it, looking here at how things have progressed with the wild card, where are we now? Let's see. We are how many games back? Many games back. Let's see, because the AL wild card right now, you got the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mariners, the Rangers, the Guardians, the Kansas City Royals, and then us. And that's just not going to make it happen this year. It is interesting when you look at the American League that we're seeing not only do the Blue Jays lead the AL East, but in the wild cards, you have 2 potential ones there with the Yankees and the Red Sox. So we've got an interesting group of games coming up, Matt. I mean, let's see. We're seeing. So we're going to stay in Chicago for the 6-day little joyride and head on over to see the Cubs, which is going to be even more challenging. Hopefully, the team's going to be a little stronger than we think than the White Sox, the Cubbies. And then we have come back home and play 4 games against the Jays. 3 with Boston.
Yeah, there's 7 against the Jays overall between now and the end of the season. So those are tough Like that's a team that plays the Rays pretty rough overall, and the same with the Red Sox. So that's why after the Guardians series, I was like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
the season that I'm calling right now because I just don't see a way out of it. I don't, first of all, I don't see the other teams losing that much to let them catch up, right? Now, the caveat to that would be the Mariners. So the Mariners are 4.5 games ahead. They could go on a mean losing streak and really open the door, but the Rays would have to go above and beyond against teams that they actually, regularly struggle against. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very implausible.
And the Mariners or Mariner fan just spent $19.99 to make sure that doesn't happen. So we'll see. Oh my gosh. But see, and then we're going to, after playing the Jays here and Boston at home, our last 6 games are going to be on the road this year. It's the Orioles and then the Blue Jays. And I'm thinking of all the teams we're going to be playing. We're going to play the number one team, really, obviously in our division, like she said, was it 6 games total? Or is it no 7 games total, I believe, with them. Jeez, Manise. The other part, can you believe we're down to just 14 games left in a 162 game season?
Yeah.
Sheesh.
It always seems to speed up at this time of year. Like you go all the way through July thinking, man, this season's taking forever. And all of a sudden September hits and you're like, man, where'd the season go? So it's kind of odd the way that baseball works. But I think if you ask those pitchers, they can tell you that they feel every single inning and every single pitch now, very, very profoundly. So that's where I think, eventually, Mark, we'll have to sit down and really do the math. Who added how many innings and what does that mean for them next year? Because
Yeah.
Drew Rasmussen, Shane Baz, a lot of those guys didn't really have um, very high innings pitched the previous season. So there's been a lot of uptick, and we're hoping that they hold up really well over the offseason and are able to come back and improve on what they did this year. But that's never a guarantee. And it's the same across the board. I think you're seeing right now a lot of teams that are wishing the trade window was still open so they could
Oh, yeah.
acquire some pitching because a lot of them are kind of, walking on eggshells when it comes to who they're putting on the mound. And I kind of took a quick glance at that today, especially just, looking at next year and at the starting pitching depth that the Rays do have. And last season, they made a lot of trades mid-season, kind of moving on from that season. And they brought in a lot of pitchers that are doing really well. So Hopkins is one that we're going to see basically graduate from AA to AAA. Jackson Bowmeister was a guy who's been injured a little bit this year, but he has the potential to be in AAA next year as well. The Rays are suddenly going to have a glut of starting pitching available to them in AA and AAA to the point where it's going to push a lot of them to the pen, like we saw this year with Ian Seymour for a while. That's how he got his taste into Major League Baseball. I think you're going to see the same thing happen next year, but on a larger scale, because Ty Johnson, Yaniel Carrette, and a bunch of other guys are going to be coming up and pushing the envelope at the AAA level. So starting pitching wise, I'm very confident with what the Rays have going into next year in terms of the depth overall. That's one of the things that I think is the strength if I'm looking at the Rays from an outside point of view, where I'm saying, you know what, we have the pitching to compete to start the year. We don't need to invest heavily on that in the offseason. We're good to go. We can focus primarily on the hitting side and really key in on how we improve our performance to drive in enough runs to support them.
Let's take that whole karmic thing you were talking about a moment ago and see where we can have a little joy. And once again, if we take a peek into the matters, there is some good news out there. And maybe that's where, as Rays fans, we should be having our focus. I mean, we should enjoy every game. We should enjoy every at bat and every pitch with the Rays, but smile a little bit more sometimes when you're looking at the matters. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there, Matt.
Yeah, so yesterday the Hot Rods, had their first playoff game. So I think the most Rays fans don't really pay attention much to the minor leagues in general. But you would think, especially when you just went to the Little League World Series, right? And it's exciting because it's the tournament, it's the playoffs. Everybody involved, has a finality to it. Everybody leads up to a certain point where you declare a champion. So you would think as a professional baseball league, the same kind of allure would come to the minor leagues, and it's just not the way that it is right now with the way the MLB has set up their sport. The Rays unfortunately had their A-ball affiliate lose their first game, but they have two more games coming. So I want to promote those. If the Rays fans want to see, the A-plus team in action, they're playing on Thursday and Friday at 6:35 Central. And you can watch them put their best foot forward against some of the, Hub City players who are up 1-0 in the series. And it's the best out of three. So those are going to be either one game or it might be two games. So for the South Atlantic League, which is what they play, at some point they'll have a couple of games that will settle out how the season works out. Unfortunately for the Charleston River Dogs, the season has ended, and so they promoted a lot of the players to help out the Hot Rods. Some of the players that were prominent on the Charleston River Dogs are now in what they call the development list.
Right.
I'll just add that Narcisco Polanco, Jonathan Russell, and Jaden Berkowitz are three guys that were promoted up to the high A. And they did the same thing with Carson Williams way back in the day. Whenever they had an opportunity to get him into playoff games, they did. And so they like to give them a taste of what that's like as much as possible. So the other team that's going to be in the playoffs eventually is the Montgomery Biscuits. So they were able to make it in based on their second half performance. So the manager we had on there, Kevin, will be able to get a taste of the playoffs for his players, and I know they're going to be a dangerous team in the Southern League to try to go for that championship, just because they have such strong pitching, and I think there's a good chance that those guys will be able to pull it off. I'm not sure when the games start. I think it's after the 15th of September. So they still have another series. But just an example, I've been watching them on the side of my screen as we've been talking. And Brody Hopkins has 5 innings pitched tonight. He's only allowed 1 hit and 1 walk. He has 6 Ks.
Wow.
No earned runs. So he's finishing the season very strong, looking like a guy that you could argue, let's say Carson Williams graduates from their prospect system, he's going to be one of the top 3 guys that people rank for the Rays prospects this offseason.
Fun times ahead, my friend. So yeah, let's go ahead and enjoy watching them as well. I'll put notes up on where they can see that in the show notes. Is also, I realize it's only got a couple of days because this will probably go live on Thursday afternoon, and then you'll have that Thursday and Friday to see those last games. That'll be good. Oh man. Well, it's been another exciting week for the Tampa Bay Rays. And I like to think with the mentality of a good pitcher that they don't think too long on their last pitch. They get excited about what that next one's got to be, what they want it to be. And I think as a fan, that's how we have to look at each of the upcoming games. So forget the World Series, forget the 500. I'm not saying anything's impossible, but I'm saying enjoy each game just as that pitcher has, and give attention to what that next pitch is going to be. And that's all I have to say about that. Mm-hmm. Well, there you have it, boys and girls. Another fun week with the Rays. And if it doesn't get any better than this, I don't know what we'll do. But, there's the future to see. Enjoy every game like we were talking about a moment before. And certainly enjoy those Bowling Green Hot Rods. And I can't wait to see what Kevin Bowes and the Montgomery Biscuits do as well. I'm really pulling for them, man. So, Matt, there's a lot of good things going on, and there's a big future. We're going to talk in future episodes about, was there really going to be another stadium? And when that might happen. But anyway, until that fated day comes, we want to thank you all again for joining us here on Baseball Biz on Deck. And Matt, any other final words?
I'm going to say just enjoy the Rays while they're at Steinbrenner Field and get those games in if you can. because it could be the last time you get to see them in that field. That's a rarity in itself. So get out there and support them while you can.
Go Rays. Rays up.
And just a reminder, if you enjoyed this show, go ahead, like and subscribe to Baseball Biz on Deck. Also, you can find Matt at matgermain.b Sky Social. That's Matt at matgermain.b Sky Social, or Mark at baseballbizondeck@gmail.com. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck at iHeart Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Special thanks to Scott Holmes for the music, stomps, and claps.